Hi, it's me again with Corel tips and tricks. Somebody sent me this, and at first I thought, what is that? Well, it's going to be a Jeep. They've only got half of it. Because if you control D and, okay, there's the number one rule. Change your duplicate distance to 0, 0. And that's exactly why. Because now I want to make a duplicate, it's right on top. And so now you kind of get the Jeep look. We're going to have to modify the windows a little bit. But this, I'm going to make it all black. And that actually helped. There's no reason to try to clean that up. You know, this window's good. These are good. These are actually pretty good. It's just the outside of the Jeep that needs to be cleaned up. And the mirror and the windshield. And so there's several ways to do this. One, probably right now, we could clean up this. Okay, it's all one group. So I'm going to ungroup it for a second. And you could kind of clean this up right off the bat with the smoothing tool, make it like a 1/4 of an inch. Well, you know what? We're not even going to do that. Let's put it back to a group because I want to, if we're going to do that, we could do it last because I want it to be a group. Now I draw in, let me see what he draws in. I'm going to hit F12 on the keyboard and I'm going to change my graphic to red. And I normally draw in a hairline, but in this particular case, I'm going to draw in like 1 point so you can see it and kind of follow along. This to me is just a curved line. And this just to me is a curved box. And the rest are just curves. So if I was going to do it, I would maybe draw a rectangle, you know, and actually make it a little bit longer. Maybe put it right on that line. And that's the reason I've got that grouped is because I want to get rid of it in a minute. I'm going to make this a little bit longer. And I'm going to take my shape tool and I'm just going to hold down the control button and I'm just going to mimic that shape. I mean, that was pretty easy. Now this one, take a rectangle about the size of that mirror, put it like right there and then squeeze it in. And you got to remember, it's going to be yours after you're done. So everything doesn't have to be, I would not think have to be perfect. Now, because this is a rectangle and our ratios locked, we can just start turning in the corners. And then that way our mirror will be symmetrical. We're going to probably want that mirror touching that later. We're going to go ahead and finish this and we'll come into this. These are fine. You know, we'll cut away these lines in a minute. You know, several ways to do stuff like this. Let's do another rectangle here. And I'm going to turn off my lock. So I'm going to do like 0.25 on the bottom, maybe 0.5. Trying to get that tire. Let's go 0.75, maybe 0.9. There you go. And then you could go 0.9 here. So you got your tire. I'm not particularly worried about that line, but we could go ahead and do it now. Just take a 2-point line and go straight from that tire and holding down the control button. And we can make it, we're going to actually need to make it a little bit longer to separate the mirrors in a minute. You know, this isn't really a symmetrical curve, even though you could make it one. So we could take another rectangle, you know, put it right on that line at the bottom, expand this out a little bit. And with our ratio lock, let's go 0.9 again. And then at the bottom 0.9, that might be a little bit thick, but that's fine. You know what, we could just draw another, and there's several ways to do this. Let's draw another rectangle about the size of that. We can squeeze it in, and let's go 0.9 again. Look at that. I mean, that's pretty dead forward. Now what we're going to do is just take a 2-point line and go straight up, holding down the control button. And I'm actually going to go past. Now this, I could probably draw with a 3-point curve line. A lot of times you can't, but look at that. And I'm going to go ahead and just maybe finish this out with a 3-point curve line to give it, let me erase that, kind of start right there. And, you know, this would maybe be the, like the freehand tool, just to go from like right there, just kind of follow that around, because it doesn't have to be perfect. Now everything pretty much done. Now, if you remember this is a group, and let's see what our nudge factor is. Let's see how big this thing is. Over 10 inches, so let's make it 12. And let's nudge this out of the way. Whoop. Let's nudge this out of the way. And see, there's kind of our Jeep total. We could take our virtual segment delete. Do we need no, we don't need a line, but okay, the square is going to fit inside there. So I'm going to get the virtual segment delete key and delete that. I'm going to delete that. We do want that separation. I'm going to delete that. And that, we could fix that. I think here we're going to want the mirror separated from the Jeep. But this isn't, and since they're cutting it out, maybe not. Let's take the virtual segment. Okay, if you notice, or I noticed, that line right here isn't touching. So let's just make it go past. And then when you cut it both times, it'll be touching. I'm thinking these mirrors needs to be touching because they're going to cut this out. So I'm just going to take this shape and just put it right there on that line. And for the one I'm doing it for, you could leave that like that. Now, I just don't like that right there. And we've got a little bit of a, whoop. Let's zoom in here. So something, oh, that's part of that line. I'm just going to delete. Be better. I don't know if it'll, yep, see it's disappearing because they're not. What we can do is just take the shape tool and just have it go right to that edge. And, you know, that's half one. Let's take both, just take this node, shift select this node, and move that over to that node. Okay. Now I'm going to leave this line intentionally long right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Smart Fill tool and I'm going to fill in that and nudge. See, I'm nudging it over. And that's going to get us so I got a little bit of a leak somewhere. No, I don't. Maybe I nudged. Okay. Now, and you could rework these, even though they look, well, they look good. I wouldn't mess with them. Those are treads of the tire. So now what we can do is just delete this, or I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to go right here. I'm going to left click, no fill. Okay, we need to get rid of that line. And this line will be a continuation. So I'm almost glad that happened. So what I want to do is take this shape and go up to and I'm going to take those two nodes and right click and break it apart. And then that way I can just delete this line. And I can do the same thing here. well, that's already deleted, so I'm just going to delete that node. So we're going to need to continue that mirror. And we can take the shape tool, holding down the control button, so you get a perfect look. Now this line isn't in there, so we need to do the same thing. Take the, well, that, I must have broken it all apart. I'm going to right click, break apart, and I'm going to go cut right here, right here. Matter of fact, none of that. That's why I kept the original. Now that line is there. So we're good to go. Now, we don't know about the separation of the window, but I think we want the window separated. So I want take an indexing line and have it snap to the end of that node. And I'm going to take my shape tool and take that and go right there to that. We might have to change that. Now what I'm going to do is select all this and control, well, you know what? I'm going to turn them all red. I'm going to control G to group, control D to duplicate, get the two-sided arrow. We're a little bit maybe fat, and we can set our nudge factor on like 0.5 and grab this whole thing and just nudge it over, and that'll work. Now, to make it all one piece is what I would do, and I still don't know about the mirrors. You know, if the mirror's gonna be cut out, see, you could cut that right there, and I could have done that pre-hand. Now everything will flow, and if we take our, let's take a black and fill this in, there's our Jeep. And just, you know what, I'm gonna nudge it out of the way. Now it's huge, it's almost 20 inches. I don't like nudging double. There's your Jeep. Now, the only other suggestion I would make would be to these things right here. And I would do that after I did this, because now it's all one piece, and I'm going to left click, right click. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the Smart Fill tool, fill that in, and I'm going to nudge it over, and I'm going to fill that in and nudge it over. I'm going to take my virtual statement delete key and delete these 4 items. I'm going to nudge these back. I'm going to left click, right click. I've got them both selected. I'm going to go to effects and blend, and I'm going to blend 3 times. Okay, they were drawn different. So what I'm going to have to do is, and I'll just show you that one starting there. So all I'm going to do is just, let's bring in an indexing line, and let's take that one away. Control, hit the plus key. Now hold down your control button, it'll stay even. Remove our indexing line, shift select the other one, and blend them, and look at that. You've got a even Jeep looking thing. I think it looks pretty good. I don't know what else I would change. I think they're going to cut it out, and you could probably clean that up a little bit, but it looks like mirror holders. That would, you know, once you take away the fill by left click and then right click and just make sure it's a hairline. I'm going to right click on red and make sure this is a hairline. That'll cut out. Anyway, that was fun. Hope that helped. Thank you for watching.